present myself. So I'm not a traffic engineer. I'm a civil engineer, so another engineer. But so I'm working for Veolia Transport, with a French-based company operating public transport network all over the world. And so we took over the operation of the tramway in Hong Kong last year. So I took over the management of the company last year. My speech today will not be focused on the existing tramway operation. There would have been a lot of things to say about that, but due to the limitation of time and also what I wanted to share with you, I decided to focus my presentation more about the experience we can have in Europe, especially about implementing modern tramways and how it has impacted the cities, this introduction of new transport system. So that's the purpose of today, even if of course we can say a few words about the existing tramway operation. And I enjoyed the nice pictures that you have shown of the city center of Hong Kong with pedestrian area and the old tramway along. It's something, of course, we should aim for, but my presentation, again, will not be focused on the existing tramway. So I will say a few words about what I just mentioned, the renewal of tramway in the world, and some reason for that. A few words about relation between sustainable development and the new tramway system, the impact on city planning, and a few words as a conclusion. Just to mention what happens, especially in Europe. So that's the experience I have because I worked a lot in Europe, so I've seen that in many cities in Europe. The renewal of tramway and how in the city centers the decision has been made by government and municipalities to try to regain space that was allocated to cars and buses and to give more space to pedestrian and tramways. So that's something that started in the 1980s, 1985. It was linked to many things. It was linked to the increase of urbanization. It was linked to the emergence of new concerns of the population towards green issues, of course. Quality of air was the first concern. It was linked also to the situation of the bus systems networks at the time. The increase of the fuel prices that were obliging people to think of alternatives to just fuel transport modes. And the will to reshape a bit some city centers, to go back to pedestrianization. So there has been a lot of investment done by municipalities, which were more city planning projects than purely transport projects. I mentioned that because it's important, it was seen like that. Some mayors in cities in France wanted to reshape their city centers, and in this project there was the transport issue that was addressed, but it was not the main issue. It was part of it. And at this time we started to discuss much more about what was mentioned by Chapman also, is the connection between the different transport modes, intermodality, and how bus system can be very complementary to a tramway system or metro system altogether, to avoid to have a redundancy of buses or lines on the same roads. So it was something that was initiated at this time. And just to give an example, in France, the country I know more, we have a lot of tramway projects since 1985. Now we have 17 tramways in cities in France. But just to give you an idea, in the 50s in France, we used to have 36 tramways all along the different cities. And in 1970, there was only 3 tramways remaining. So all the tramways have been removed from city centers, only roads, cars, buses, everything was of course focused on that. And since the 80s, it's a reverse trend that we are facing. If we speak about sustainable development, it's a very simple comparison, but it's quite significant for me. If you compare the carbon footprint of a tramway system to a bus system or cars, of course, it's striking to see the impact it can have on the climate and the discussion that are today very trendy in the world. So these are figures for standard tramway, but just to give an example, the existing tramway that we have in Hong Kong is even much less than that. So we have a carbon footprint which is very, very low. So it participates, of course, to this change. In terms of energy consumption, it's the same. When you compare the energy consumption per passenger kilometer between cars, buses, and the rail system, of course we have the same statement. Some elements we can mention about modern tramway. So I will show you very nice pictures of tramway in France, especially some in Europe and in France. But yes, noise is, when we discuss about pollution, for me there are many aspects we can deal with. Of course, air quality is important, but there are other aspects. And noise for me is an important one, especially when you look at very heavy traffic, cars and buses in a very city center. One of the aims of introducing new transport mode in this area, in newly developed area, or I will come back on that, or in existing one that are completely redesigned, is to try to decrease also the noise level in the street. And in fact, to come back on the accident, what we're discussing about road safety, I can give you some clue about what we face with the Hong Kong tramway today, the existing line. We have quite a number of accidents because we are in the middle of the traffic, and like cars and buses, we are facing the same problems. And we have accidents with pedestrians also, unfortunately. And some accidents are also linked to the fact that due to the general noise environment in the street, people are not hearing very well what is going on. So when the tram is coming, for example, and he wants to signal himself to use the horn or the famous ding ding to a pedestrian, due to the general noise level, it's not always easy to hear that. So we have some accidents that could be linked to that, especially with the elderly. So the general noise level in the streets of Hong Kong is very high, very high. It's due to the density also, but it's one aspect. When we speak sustainable development, of course, we mention what can be recycled, and now modern systems, of course, are focusing on that. And maybe Pascal will mention more because it's very technical and very engineering stuff. But basically, all the new systems now are trying to build up on very recycled material. Access to all, very important also, and in Europe it was a big debate many years ago, and now the fight is over because it's compulsory, especially in France. All the transport mode must be accessible to all disabled people. But it started not so long ago. The first tram system accessible to disabled people was in France, in Grenoble, in 1987. But since now, all these modern trams are designated to be, of course, pedestrian friendly. That's the idea. But again, to come back to what was said, when we mentioned pedestrian, there are many types of pedestrian. So of course, disabled are part of it. City planning. I will mention that because it's, as I said, usually the new tramway system that has been implemented in cities in Europe, and the US is the same, were part of a general city planning program that was launched by the government. It was not the project by itself. So part of this program, which was focusing on several aspects, giving back space to pedestrians, improving the connection between transport modes, and of course putting as a backbone a greener transport mode like a tramway. So, but everything was linked together. And since then, what has been seen is the image of all this city planning project is very related to the transport mode at the end, because it's the most visible part. And now these cities are benefiting from this image that is coming from this new transport mode. So it is a city planning project. A modern tramway in this project is really a landmark of the city, and it is again based on the friendliness between a pedestrian and transport mode. So I will give you some examples just to show and to what has been the changes. And again, this is something that when we were discussing in these cities 20 years ago, I was working in a city in the northeast of France where we were discussing about tramway, and at the time